Mercury begins its retrograde on July 18th. And this one is stirring up something wild, something raw, something deeply personal. This particular Mercury retrograde is about the voice you swallowed, the truth that you may have had to soften, and the roar that you've had to silence in order to keep the peace. Squaring Lilith and Scorpio, this retrograde journey is a reclamation. It's a journey into the underworld where you've kept your suppressed power, where you've had to dim your radiance to be liked or chosen or safe. Where have you edited your truth in order to be the version that other people wanted you to be? And it's also a call into your own leadership, becoming the leader that you've always envisioned or that you've always wanted other people to be, to not just speak the message, but become that very messenger that you're seeking out there. This retrograde is here to liberate you, and it's here to remind you that your voice, when it's led by the heart, it's not too much. It is the medicine, and it's time to use it. If you're new here, hi, my name is Jazz, and I help people uncover their unconscious blocks in a life that often doesn't even feel like it's theirs anymore. So if you've gotten readings, you've collected the spiritual tools, but you're still feeling stuck and not understanding how this is supposed to help you at all in your life and bring any sort of tangible transformation, you're in the right place. That's what I like to do here. And in this video, we're going to do it through the lens of Mercury retrograde. This retrograde is happening from July 18th until August 11th in the sign of Leo. In my previous Mercury retrograde video that I did about Mercury going retrograde in Aries, I talked about a lot of the Mercury retrograde and Pluto associations. So make sure you check that video out, because besides talking about Mercury and Aries, I talk about how Mercury retrograde is going into the underworld. And I also mentioned in that video how every year when we have Mercury retrogrades, they tend to, sometimes it's a little off pattern, but they tend to happen in one element. So right now they're happening in the element of fire. And that was Mercury in Aries. Now it's Mercury in Leo. And so if you look at the trigon of fire in your chart, this is an area that's being alchemized through Mercury's lens. So through thought, communication, speech, writing, travel, all these things, mindset as well. But if we think about Mercury retrograde being a descent into the underworld, well, in this scenario, it even gets more so, because from August 7th to the 14th specifically, it's going to be pretty close to Pluto and Aquarius. It's going to be a couple degrees away. Pluto is the underworld, right? So there's an added emphasis of this Mercury descent. And on top of that, Mercury is going to be squared by Lilith in Scorpio during this time. And Lilith is the feminine truth rising from the underworld. This is a primal, feminine, sacred feminine rage, oftentimes that's within us because of the repression. We're dealing with a lot of underworld themes during this time, a lot of uprising, a lot of unconscious things coming to the forefront. One of the things that I love about Mercury retrograde, but is also one of the reasons why it's so difficult for a lot of us, is that it's trying to show us something from the underworld. I was having a talk with one of my mentors, and we were talking about this and how I have this weird thing with Mercury retrograde because I made so many bad decisions during Mercury retrogrades. I've had like really big decisions I've made that have cost me a lot of money and a lot of trouble and a lot of time and thinking and stressing over it. And at the end of the call, we were talking about how I was telling her, I was like, yeah, when Mercury goes retrograde, it's really entering Pluto's realm. It's really entering this like underworld. And she was like, oh, really? And she's like, well, so many of us are scared of that. And I was like, oh my God, you're so right. Meaning that like in that moment, it clicked for me that all of those experiences that I had during Mercury retrograde where I made like really big, bad mistake, I wasn't looking at those through the lens of what was trying to be shown to me during that time from my unconscious. And how do I then see those events that happened as helping me on my path? Because one of my biggest spiritual tenets is that I believe everything that happens to me is for my best. So if I look at a situation that comes to me and I really feel that way. Like, of course, when something bad happens, I feel like crap. I'm human. But very quickly, I alchemize that into like, okay, what is this trying to do for me? And I actually had a recent situation, which I'll talk about later, around Mercury and Leo shadow retrograde stuff. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I'm just like, this is how sneaky this shadow stuff is. I've recently been talking a lot about shadow, and Mercury retrograde, by the way, guys, is like the perfect time to do shadow work. I mean, it's always the perfect time, but it's like, this is when your mind is naturally attuned to the unconscious realm. So why not take advantage of it? And I'm actually going to be coming out with a shadow work and tarot video, which is my personal favorite tool to use for subconscious work, personally. And by the way, subscribe to my Substack because I have 2 workshops in the works of around shadow work, and one that is going to show you guys how to use it to map your shadows using astrology and human design. And then the second one, how to actually embody it when you are moving through the world and getting triggered, because that's what life does. So if you are interested in that, please subscribe to my Substack, because that's the best way that you'll get notified about when it's happening, because YouTube doesn't always send out notifications and all those things. So, but yeah, this is really a descent into the underworld here. So how can we go with those energies, and whatever comes up, ask ourselves, how do I work with this? How do I not see this as a negative thing that's happening to me, but that's happening for me? So now that we're talking about that, let's talk about some of the themes that come up when Mercury is in Leo. Well, if we think about Mercury and its communication and travel and thoughts and mindset, and we think about Leo and its leadership and authenticity and leading from the heart and radiance, right? This is ruled by the sun, the voice of the heart. This is self expression, standing out, shining bright. And we think about the square to Lilith and Scorpio, which is really underpinning these shadowy aspects of our voice. And with Scorpio, it's deep, it's intense. And there's things around sexuality or power dynamics that are coming through here. And we bridge all of that together. And it seems like we're being asked to maybe revisit how authentic our voice is and how we express that, where we possibly sacrifice that for a sense of belonging because of that opposition to Pluto and Aquarius, right? So Mercury in Leo is me, my authenticity, my truth, my heart. Pluto in Aquarius is the collective, is the group, the systems, your voice versus what the group thinks, your truth versus what the crowd thinks. And Leo ruling, being the lion and ruling the heart and ruling leadership as well, right? This is the sign of the king. This is asking, like, where have you silenced your roar to keep the peace? This is Leo the lion. He is meant to roar. Where have you silenced yours? Where have you buried it? Whose messages have you followed while ignoring your own inner knowing, right? In what ways have you gone with authority or the group when you had your own inner knowing that something wasn't right here, something was amiss here? And where in your life is it time to remember the power of your own voice? Because a lot of times with Mercury and Leo, we forget that Leo loves adoration. It wants to be loved, it wants to be adored. So, where do you seek approval before trusting your own knowing? Because a lot of times, Leos are afraid to speak the things that they want to say because they've been told that they're too much, that it's too intense. And especially squaring Lilith here. Lilith is that repressed feminine, the woman who wanted to lay with Adam and not beneath him. And then she was casted out and made to be a demon who did all these horrible things. But really, she just wanted equality. And so from her comes this primal rage of not being able to have that sense of equality, of that I matter, what I want matters too. And so when Mercury is squaring this in Leo, it's asking, like, where have you traded your authenticity for inclusivity or an opportunity? Where did you believe that you couldn't be you if you wanted to belong? These are the themes that are coming up for you specifically, yes, but also about how you see the world. There's so much knowledge in the spiritual world, in astrology, human design, tarot, numerology, whatever. There's so much knowledge. People who are filled with all this wisdom and ancient knowledge and ancient knowings. And yet the embodiment of that is sometimes lacking. Who are we placing in the center of our world, right? This is the sun, Leo. Who are we allowing to come into our world and revolve around them? And this could be in small ways, right? This could be a teacher, this could be a friend, this could be a family member, this could be your partner. Where are we allowing them to become a leader that maybe they haven't actually proven to be worthy of? Now, I want to make this very clear. Like, the way that I come from this is not like a screw them type person. I'm very actually nuanced about relationships. And I think that Pluto in Aquarius has this downside, or this like shadow aspect of cancel culture, of being like, oh, you're different than me, so you suck, you're wrong, I'm right. It's like me versus them. That's not the same energy here. Okay. And I want to make this very clear, because as somebody who has a wild moon, okay, I have a moon in Sagittarius, already a wild woman, but it's unaspected, which makes it a very pure archetype. And then on top of that, the only aspect it does make is to Black Moon Lilith. Like, she is the pure, repressed, feminine, wild archetype that wants freedom and authenticity and to express herself. And especially when it's me against someone in a position of authority, there's a lot of history there. Because to me, you deserve respect for what you've accomplished, but you're still a human and I'm a human. And I felt that way since I was a little kid, and it's got me into a lot of trouble. Let me just say that. But I recently had this situation where it came up where it was like, I really wanted to say something, and there's people around me who were like, it's not that big of a deal. But for someone who's got Pluto on my IC opposing my Mercury on my MC, and that Moon Lilith thing in, Sagittarius, authenticity is so important to me. Integrity is so important to me. So sometimes the thing has to be said, but sometimes the thing also does not have to be said, right? This is where it gets really important for you to discern, what does it mean in this situation to own my power? Because a lot of times what I did when I was younger was I used my voice, my Lilith voice, really loudly, really dramatically. Because if you can imagine, the repressed feminine is like, I'm going to speak. Sometimes reclaiming our roar is walking away. Sometimes it's unfollowing somebody. Sometimes it's saying no, thank you. Sometimes it's saying have a great day and turning around and leaving. Sometimes it's writing a letter that you never send. So often behind our rage or our injustice, desire or feeling of injustice, lies a desire to make other people understand us. And sometimes this is so subtle. Sometimes we're like, no, I don't care, but you really have to look at it. And during Mercury retrograde, it'll also give you an opportunity to really, really look at, what am I trying to get through with my voice? Is it actually to just reclaim my power, or is it to make somebody feel bad for what they did, to make them understand, to put them down passive aggressively? Or is it an actual reclamation of my own power, even if they cannot see it? The way that I've learned to work with this Lilith energy is to alchemize it, to ritualize it, to transmute it. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. A lot of times, rage is the voice of a boundary that was crossed, and that could be collective or personal. It's a truth that was ignored. And especially with Lilith and Scorpio, this could be around power, sexuality, betrayal, and our deep emotions. So this is the roar that you buried to be liked, to feel safe, to feel like you could belong. When this rage comes up, I ask myself two things. What is this trying to show me about what I value? And what does it make me feel like I need to protect? This is so important, you guys, because if you don't understand where this anger, this rage is coming from, and what the actual root of it is, you're always spinning out. But when you know, oh, when this boundary gets crossed, when this value is ignored, this is when my rage comes. I think the essence of that Lilith is like confronting the masculine, but the masculine is also in women, as we know, right? So like the authority nature where it's taken too far, where it's a dominating energy that can be a misuse of the masculine. You know, I come from a country where since the revolution, women have really been suppressed there. My dad always tells me, he's like, I think that you had to come to this country because I don't think you would have lived if you lived there, because they know that I have this tendency to kind of, yeah, I've said this before, but in Farsi, we say zabun deraz, which means long tongue. But it's just like this, somebody who speaks, who talks back, who speaks too much or whatever. And my mom used to call me that when I was younger. And yeah, my tongue got me into a lot of trouble, as you can imagine, for a little girl who is constantly told like you need to be liked, you need to be pleasing. And so I suppressed all that Lilith rage and just went, but the rage didn't go anywhere. Right. And then I got autoimmune diseases and I got all these problems and stuff. And so instead of it going the opposite direction, which is often happens, it's like, oh, now I'm just like, you know, when I think of Lilith, when I feel her in my body, when she's activated, it is a roar for me, right? Like, I don't know how it feels for you guys in your body if you have a connection with Lilith, but it really feels like this, like, oh, I can't even do it. You know, it's just so intense. So a lot of times what can happen is like, then we just go into that and we're like, okay, I'm just going to go. I'm just going to like tear it all down and, you know, like destroy everything. And sometimes there's a time and a place for that, but sometimes it's a little bit more nuanced, right? Sometimes, like I said, it's a little less dramatic. You can ask yourself, like, what value is being shown to me? And what does it show that I believe need to be protected? Because what this allows you to do is to then put up those boundaries in the necessary places. Because, like I said, rage is a boundary that's been ignored. So when you know your boundaries, then you can assert them proactively, more effectively, and more consciously. But then I really just say, what do I want to create from this destruction? This is how we keep this cycle of nature moving within us. This destructive nature comes down, this roar, whatever you feel it in your body that you so angry, you can't stand this anymore. You can't stand being told that you're too much or that you can't see this and you shouldn't say that and this isn't right and you should go with the rules and you shouldn't do what you want. And you shouldn't say what you want. And you just want to scream. This is destruction. I don't bypass this. I feel it. But then what do we do with that? We recognize like, okay, do I need to say something? Is this something that, you know, I can just ignore? And this is how I reclaim my power in the situation. Because saying something would be trying to get them to see something that they're just not going to see. If somebody's not going to see my value, they're not going to get it if I explain it to them, right? Like, stop trying to explain things to people that just don't want to understand you. But then feeling like, well, then how do I take care of myself? The next thing for me is the creation aspect. Creation is anything that we consciously bring into this world. When I personally have this anger, I want to make something from it. Maybe I'll make a video. Maybe I'll make a Substack post. Maybe I'll write a story in my journal and no one else sees it. I want to ask myself, how do I bring this formless anger into a form that creates more beauty in the world? This is alchemizing it. This is the transmutation that I'm talking about. This is what this time is asking of us. During Mercury Retrograde, how do we alchemize the pain? How do we alchemize the anger? The anger of knowing that we've repressed ourselves. We've allowed our voices to drown out so we could feel like we belong, so that people would like us. And this is, I think, honestly, the most important part is not making it mean anything about you and not making it mean anything about the other person. Right? Some people are just not very nice people, very clear. But a lot of times, once again, it's a lot more nuanced than that. I've seen people change, and I've seen that as I change, people become more multidimensional. And if I want people to hold me with love and compassion and still hold me to a high standard of integrity, right? But to know that I'm also human, to have space for me to screw up and maybe not recognize it right away, then I have to be willing to give that to other people. So this is why the cancel culture thing for me doesn't work. This is why I understand that people are often hurting or they simply don't know any better. And yet that doesn't mean that I have to continue to engage with them and make them the center of my world, right? How can you use this time to become the leader of your own life? The leader that you're looking for out there, how do you become her? How do you become him? Mercury and Leo is asking us to change our mindset and our communication and what we listen to and respond to. And when we think about changing our mindset and our communication, it's around allowing ourselves to be the leaders that we're looking for, allowing our thoughts to center around us, right? This is something that fire signs get a lot of crap for, and I've talked about this, is that people who don't have fire in their charts as much or have repressed their fire, so they do not claim their fire energy, they think fire signs are selfish. But yet we hear all these things like we need to put, the oxygen mask on first. You need to pour your own cup before you can help others. But then somehow, if I say things like you need to make sure that you're the center of your world, a lot of people will be like, no, we need to care about other people. Yeah, of course we need to care about other people. But we can't do that accurately if we are not taking care of us. And we can't do it authentically if we're sacrificing our voice, our truth, in order to make other people feel better, in order to make them feel like they're the center of our world. It's coming from a place of lying. You're lying because you're not being authentic to yourself. You're not listening to your heart. You're not listening to your inner knowing. And your relationships are taking on a quality of untruth. It's about recognizing and reclaiming your own sovereignty so that you can help other people better. So if I had to sum it up, this retrograde is helping us discern truth from charisma when it comes to other people, reclaim our inner roar, no matter how small or not dramatic that is, reconsider who we follow and who we listen to and why, stop outsourcing truth to people who look shiny but feel off. Remember that sacred rage is the primal roar of reclamation. It's not about changing others, more about reclaiming yourself. If you want to alchemize where you have lost your power, you can write an angry letter that you never send. You can burn it, you can tear it up and throw it away. And then you can even think about this journal prompt. What have I been afraid to say out loud because I feared it would make me too much? And this is like, when I think about what somatic things to do, it's anything that makes you feel big, that you're taking up space. Lion's breath is really helpful if you are familiar with that. But even just movements that a lion would make, it's like allowing yourself to take up space, allowing yourself to step into this powerful place. I'm going to finish this off the same way that I finished my Substack. Here's to the roar you buried for safety, and to the version of you who's ready to let it rise. I'll see you guys next time.